Hi, my name's Eric, and I'll be reading you selections from today's Fall River, the Herald News. Today's date is Tuesday, May 19th of 2026. We'll start with the weather, as we always do. Across the south coast today, expect periods of sun and warm. Very warm, might even hit 90, a high of 88 expected, a low of 59 today. So you might want to be opening up all those windows, making sure the air conditioning is going and that you're flipping your heat selector from hot to cold. Tomorrow, Wednesday, warming up. Afternoon thunderstorm expected. Again, 88 the expected high, might hit 90. Low of 52. On Thursday, cloudy and cooler. A high of 72 and a low of 41 in the overnight. Might be a little bit of rain here and there. Mostly cloudy on Friday as well. High of 69, low of 46. And on Saturday, chances of showers throughout the day. High of 69, low of 48. So the next 2 days, very warm. Get outside, feel the sun on your face if you can. And then expect cloudy and cooler weather on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Possibly a little rain as well on top of that. Now heading to the front of the paper. The headline above the fold, if there was such a thing in a digital newspaper, historic 1844 law office building is on the real estate market by Dan Medeiros in Fall River. A historic home over 180 years old, known for its stately Greek columns, is on the real estate market. The John Mace Smith House at 399 North Main Street's been listed for sale with Equity Real Estate with an asking price of $1.5 million. For the past several decades, the building's been home to law firm Sahady Associates. The property listing indicates the building has office space on the first and second floors with a separate apartment on the second floor. The lot contains 15 parking spaces. The owners previously listed the property for sale in 2024. The property is in a B-L zoning district, which allows for several types of businesses and housing up to 3 families. When was the house built? The home's a historic property that was built in 1844. It's on the city's Register of Significant Structures and is listed with the Massachusetts Historical Commission and the National Register of Historic Places. The land was originally part of Rodman Farm, which was subdivided and sold in the first half of the 19th century. The house was built for and owned by John Mace Smith, who was born in the late 1790s, and was associated with the American Print Works. Smith died in 1874. The house has held professional offices for at least a century, being the offices of Dr. John Coughlin from the 1890s through the 20s and Dr. Albert Perron in the 1930s to 1950s. Since the 1960s, the building has been attorneys' offices. So, why is this house significant? The building, which sits across Walnut Street from the former Bristol County Superior Court, is notable for its distinctive scroll-style Ionic columns and its temple front design. It's an example of Greek Revival architecture, and according to the National Register of Historic Places application, is one of a cluster of outstanding Greek Revival houses on North Main Street built by early mill owners and prosperous merchants in the downtown area after the 1843 fire. The other headline on the cover of today's Herald News is titled Proud of the Scholars. Some Argosy 2026 grads earn college degrees and high school diplomas. A cohort of 20 students out of a graduating class of 66 managed to weave college-level coursework totaling 60 credits into their itineraries. Argosy at 240 Dover Street offers a regionally unique Department of Secondary Education designed wall-to-wall early college program, providing every student the opportunity to earn free college credits as early as the summer before their 9th grade, in partnership with Bristol and the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth. For the past several years since the high school opened in 2017, Argosy's onboarding college curriculum has gained momentum, sending students to Bristol's campus to further enrich their learning experiences. All students are offered the opportunity to take college courses, but none until now have completed a 2-year college degree. Every senior, said Raposo, will be graduating with tuition-free college credits. Based on data released from Argosy, the class of 2026 is on track to earn 2,261 credits in their high school career, including 1,055 credits just this year. I feel so proud of the scholars, Kristen Pavayo, Argosy's founding director, said. Every single year, the class that graduates has achieved a new height in the early college program. Referencing Fall River's socioeconomic range and the diminishing affordability of a college degree, she said, it's really about transforming opportunities for young people. Raposo said having Argosy seniors full-time at Bristol is an unprecedented accomplishment, with all seniors headed to Bristol twice weekly. But these seniors are such great role models for the underclassmen. How do the underclassmen see all the good things happening? Raposo said, probing the tension between preserving a high school experience for graduating classes and offering the opportunity for students to become acculturated to a college campus. Logistically, college courses are substituted in for core classes, allowing students to earn a diploma and college credit at once without extending a typical school day. Vanessa Garcia, an Argosy senior and Bristol graduate, said the high school experience, especially as a senior, revolves around the people you're with. When we're on the Bristol campus, we're all together. We just emulate the high school experience there. We don't have to sacrifice it. We get to keep it, Evan Raposo said, another senior up for double graduation. The associate's degree in liberal arts and humanities that will cap off some students' time at Argosy involved a mix of Monday through Thursday campus visits with Fridays spent on the home Argosy campus. In line with Governor Maura Healey's recent goal to expand early college access for students across the state, Argosy, a school that serves a diverse student population reflective of the greater community, is a model, Pavao said, for other communities or like institutions, and similarly, its student scholars have placed early college learning on the map. In 2012, at the time she wrote Argosy's charter, there were 2 public high schools in the city. Now there are 4, she said. The school was founded to transform college-going opportunities for young people in a community where that wasn't a priority, Pavao said. When they step onto a college campus or whatever they're going to step into after high school graduation, they're really fully prepared with experiences that most other high school students don't have, Pavao said. Boston University, Northeastern University, Bridgewater State University, and Roger Williams University are all named as schools Argosy graduates are heading to in the fall. Student Anaya Longchamp's older brother is an Argosy alum, she said, but during his time at Argosy, he couldn't fathom being a full-time student at Bristol like Anaya. Since then, the partnership between Argosy and Bristol has flourished to accommodate parallel coursework at 2 locations. Longchamp is finishing high school at the same time she's realizing she likes how college courses work. That's why I'm excited to go to college now, she said. I think Argosy is really incredible at giving us so much support, Evans said of the 2 dedicated Argosy liaisons that check in with students constantly. You're never really alone in the process, he said. Garcia recalls coming into 9th grade with a bunch of options placed before me. At the time, she enrolled in an art course and a Portuguese language course. She admitted to taking calculus in her senior year, noting a progression that was far from daunting. Pavao said Argosy's Alumni Advancement Fund has helped support scholars in taking their next steps since 2023. We'll continue to be supportive of them because the journey isn't done, Pavao said. How do we, in a small environment like this, maximize the opportunity and redefine what's possible in a public high school setting in a city like Fall River? Go shine, go flourish, go do what's right, and find your pathway, she said. Moving inside the paper, Run to Remember honors fallen heroes at Fall River event by Beth McDermott. Fall River area residents are invited to participate in an event honoring fallen service members through movement and remembrance. Wear Blue Run to Remember is hosting a community run and walk at 10 a.m. on May 25th at Veterans Memorial Bicentennial Park at 1 Brownell Street in Fall River, according to a community announcement. The event aims to move beyond observation and into intentional action to honor the sacrifices of American military members. The event will include a circle of remembrance where participants will speak the names of fallen service members aloud before beginning a 2-mile run or walk. All abilities are welcome. Participants can register to receive the name of a fallen service member through Wear Blue's Hero Match program, or choose to honor someone personally meaningful. Each step becomes an act of remembrance, ensuring no sacrifice is forgotten. Memorial Day is more than a moment, said Ryan Taniguchi, Director of Community Runs at Wear Blue Run to Remember. It's an opportunity to actively remember. When we carry a name and move with purpose, we ensure that sacrifice is not only acknowledged, but lived and honored in a tangible way. Those unable to attend in person can participate virtually from anywhere. You can visit wearblueruntoremember.org/memorial-day to learn more and register. Founded in 2010, Wear Blue Run to Remember is a national nonprofit that honors the service and sacrifice of the American military through active remembrance. The organization supports Gold Star and surviving families, veterans, active duty service members, and civilians through community-based movement, intentional remembrance practices, and meaningful relationships. Through community running events and dedicated programs, Wear Blue creates spaces where speaking names, sharing stories, and moving together strengthen connection, resilience, and belonging. And now's a good time to remind you that if you miss any of the information that we share, like that website address or an email address or a phone number, you can always go to audiblelocalledger.org, click on the Listen tab. It's a fully disability-compliant website, and under All Reads to the Blind, there are 150 chronologically arranged readings with the most recent at the top, so you can catch up on anything that you might have missed. All of that is free for people who are blind or print disabled at audiblelocalledger.org. The next headline in today's Fall River Herald News: Free Tiverton Church Event Addresses Mental Health Stigma by Beth McDermott. Community members are invited to learn about the realities of mental illness and the importance of compassion at a free community event. Amicable Congregational Church is hosting its next monthly speaker series, Inside Mental Illness, at 6:30 p.m., May 21st at 3736 Main Road in Tiverton, Rhode Island, according to a community announcement. The event will explore the impact of anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, and other mental health challenges in Rhode Island, as well as the stigma that often surrounds them. Attendees will hear personal stories of hope and recovery and learn about the importance of education, empathy, and access to care. According to the announcement, 16,000 Rhode Islanders ages 12 to 17 experience a major depressive episode each year. 10,000 Rhode Islanders ages 12 through 17 have serious thoughts of suicide annually, and more than 6,000 adults have serious thoughts of suicide each year. 847 lives were lost to suicide in Rhode Island in 2025. The presentation will cover the power of stigma in society and how to create change, as well as discussions on mood disorders such as depression and anxiety, and thought disorders like schizophrenia. The message of the evening is grounded in hope, emphasizing that recovery from serious mental illness is not only possible, but probable for many individuals with the proper support and treatment, according to the announcement. The event is free and open to the public. Community members, families, educators, caregivers, and anyone interested in mental health advocacy are encouraged to attend. For more information, you can contact Amicable Congregational Church at 401 624 4611. Again, 401 624 4611. And both of these last two stories have the same editorial note. The story was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence, AI. Journalists were involved in every step of the information gathering, the review, editing, and the publishing process. We're at the midway portion of our reading. Regular listeners know that's when we move to a different kind of local news, which are the obituaries and death notices published in the Fall River Herald News for that day. And for today, Tuesday, May 19th, there is one obituary. It's of a service member, Michael R. LePage. Lieutenant Michael R. LePage, Fall River Fire Department, 65 years old, of Fall River, passed on Friday, May 15th. Born in Fall River, he was the son of the late Orient J. and Anne Marie Gauthier LePage. Michael was a woodworker, NASCAR fan, German Shepherd enthusiast who was happiest sharing his favorite pastimes with his loved ones and friends. Michael is survived by his siblings and many friends and family. A visitation will be held this Thursday, May 21st, from 4 to 8 p.m. at the Eau Claire Funeral Home at 690 South Main Street in Fall River. His funeral will take place this Friday, May 22nd at 9 a.m. from the Eau Claire Funeral Home. It will be followed by a funeral mass at 10 a.m. at St. Mary's Cathedral, 327 2nd Street in Fall River. The burial will follow at Notre Dame Cemetery, Stafford Road in Fall River. In lieu of flowers, please consider a donation to the Fall River Fire Museum at fallriverfiremuseum.org/donate. Keeping it local, we'll move to sports. Former Case junior varsity softball player having a big start to her career. By Stephen Sanchez of the Herald News in Fall River. You could tell from opening day that Lorelei Shields was going to be a special player for the Diamond softball team. The Bengals freshman and Joseph Case transfer student went 3 for 5 with a double and 5 RBIs against Seekonk. Since then, Shields has continued to raise eyebrows from opposing coaches. First of all, coming in as a freshman, I had her for volleyball in the fall season. Diamond head coach Kathy Mello said, "You don't know a lot about them as a freshman. I saw in the spring while indoors and saw she had the fielding mechanics. She started to come along in games and getting some contact. I can't get her out of the first 5 spots in the lineup. I can't keep her out of it." Shields has been in the Bengals starting lineup since day one and hitting a sizzling .487 batting average. She has 19 hits, including 7 doubles, a triple, home run, 16 RBIs, and 5 stolen bases. Shields had a 4-hit game against Southeastern with 3 runs scored, triple, and 4 RBIs. She also had 3 consecutive games with a pair of hits, including a home run, 2 doubles, a triple, and 4 RBIs combined. Her numbers thus far are comparable to talented veteran catcher Paisley Parisi, who is batting .475 with 19 hits, 6 doubles, 2 triples, a home run, 14 RBIs, and 3 stolen bases. She just comes through with people on base, Mello said. She makes contact so often. As an 8th grader, Shields played for the Cardinals' JV softball team. She did travel ball for the Rage Extreme Travel Softball out of Swansea, and currently Rhode Island Fire and Ice Team, an elite youth fast-pitch softball organization based out of East Providence, Rhode Island. Shields said she's enjoyed her first season at Diamond. "I really like being on this team. I think Coach Mello has helped out a lot. We get along with each other, and we all work pretty well together. We have good relationships." With the Bengals pushing for a playoff spot, Shields feels pretty confident the team will pull through. Diamond has a 7-6 record with 7 games remaining on the schedule. "I like playing with them and being together as a team," Shields reiterated. "We have to stick together and trust each other." We've completed all the local news, moving on to the international and national news. From analysis section, Within today's Fall River Herald News, dated May 19th, Cuba faces possible Trump takeover. Indicting Castro could be a first step, experts say, by Aisha Bagchi of USA Today. The federal government's moves to indict former Cuban President Raul Castro will ramp up pressure for regime change in Cuba, and it could be a prelude to a U.S. military operation, just as the Trump administration sent troops into Venezuela in January to capture indicted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. But some legal experts say that while an indictment could signal the Trump administration plans to take Castro by force, it would be legally questionable, just as the Venezuela operation was. And by leaking the effort to seek charges against Castro for allegedly ordering humanitarian planes to be shot down in international airspace in 1996, U.S. officials haven't helped ensure a potential military operation is unexpected and covert. If I were the Cuban government, I'd be very concerned, given everything Trump's been saying, that this was a fig leaf to cover an upcoming invasion. Mitchell Epner, a former federal prosecutor, told USA Today. I do think that they'll indict Raul Castro and then snatch him, or use that as a way to compel regime change there, said Dave Arenberg, a former state attorney for Florida's Palm Beach County. President Donald Trump has been speaking for months about a takeover of the longtime communist country. The Trump administration's recent military strikes against Venezuela and Iran have heightened beliefs that the president might actually use force against the Caribbean island nation. Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis said he wants the U.S. to help bring regime change, almost in the same breath as he praised the potential indictment during public remarks May 15th. He should be indicted, and he should be held accountable, and the Cuban regime is outdated as well, DeSantis said. The White House referred USA Today to the Department of Justice for questions about a potential indictment and what could come next. The DOJ didn't respond to a request for comment. The sought-after charges reportedly date back to a 1996 incident in which Castro allegedly ordered Cuban fighter jet pilots to shoot down 2 civilian planes that were working under a humanitarian group, Brothers to the Rescue. 4 members of the group were killed, including 3 U.S. citizens and 1 man who was a U.S. resident from Cuba. Cuba's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said in 1996 that the 2 planes, which took off from Florida, violated airspace over Cuban territorial waters. But the United Nations International Civil Aviation Organization determined the planes were in international airspace and the attack was illegal. 10 years later, El Nuevo Herald, a Spanish-language newspaper in Florida, obtained audio that purported to reveal Raul Castro describing to Cuban reporters how he planned with military officers to shoot down the planes, according to the Miami Herald, which is owned by El Nuevo Herald's publisher. Castro headed Cuba's armed forces at the time of the attack. Maduro's capture in January heightens suspicions that the Trump administration could be planning a similar operation in Cuba, because it provides a potential blueprint and may itself have been meant to weaken the Cuban regime. Maduro, a socialist dictator, was a close ally of the Cuban government. After his capture, Venezuela stopped sending oil to Cuba. Cuba's energy minister, Vicente de Levy, said on a state media report May 13th that the country's supply of fuel oil has now run out, according to his widespread reports. Once Maduro was gone, it was only a matter of time until their energy supply dried up, Arenberg said. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who reportedly persuaded Trump to abandon negotiation efforts with Maduro, has been beating the drum on regime change in Cuba for decades. An indictment against Castro could, in the eyes of some, provide cover for the U.S. to attempt to seize Castro. When Trump announced the capture of Maduro in January, he described at length U.S. criminal charges against Maduro that had been pending for years, accusing him of conspiring to transport thousands of tons of cocaine into the U.S. Following Maduro's capture, 4 Republican members of Congress praised Trump in a letter for capturing him and urged Trump to consider indicting Raul Castro for the 1996 killings. The model of Maduro looms large here, Dave Aronberg said. Some legal advocates would likely challenge such military action in Cuba under both the international law and the U.S. Constitution. The United Nations Charter, which the U.S. Senate ratified in an 89-2 vote in 1945, only authorizes using military force without the UN Security Council's permission in self-defense if an armed attack occurs. In addition, the U.S. Constitution gives Congress, not the President, the power to declare war, and some legal experts would likely say military action in Cuba is an act of war, especially if it's part of a regime change effort. But it's unclear if any of these objections would prevent a case against Castro from going forward in court. There's always been a tension in U.S. law about if the U.S. gets hold of somebody in an illegal manner. Does the court have the ability to basically throw them back into the sea like a fish, or is that something beyond the power of the court, Epner said. Maduro is arguing in court that the manner of his capture, which he says was illegal, should block the U.S. government from prosecuting him. Epner said Castro could argue that any charges should be thrown out because the U.S. government engaged in unconstitutional, outrageous conduct by seizing him under false pretenses, ostensibly about the 1996 plane incident, but really about pushing for regime change in Cuba. However, Castro's potential legal defense would also be weaker than Maduro's in at least one respect, Aronberg said. Maduro is able to argue that he's immune from charges because he was Venezuela's head of state. Prosecutors may dispute that, saying he stole the office after losing in Venezuela's elections, and so wasn't the legitimate leader. Castro, by contrast, has been out of office in Cuba for several years, even if he remains the patriarch of a politically powerful family. His defense lawyers would have a tough time getting him released because he has less of a legal claim to immunity, Aronberg said. So, he is in a more precarious position than Maduro. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Fall River Herald News for today, Tuesday, May 19th of 2026. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe. Hope you're having a lovely week leading up to Memorial Day. You're going to have a few really nice warm days, and then it'll cool off a little bit, and we'll see what the weekend brings. There may be a little rain ahead of us for the weekend, but enjoy this day. Bye for now.